guys, it's Sam from Newline here. Today we are going to be looking at what a broadcast looks like from the student perspective. So, what does it look like when you're mirroring content from your Newline display to your student's device? In this case, I'm using a Chromebook, but you can use any type of device that has a network connection. So, the first thing that I want to do as a student is go to the website that is shown up on my teacher's display. In this case, it's going to be broadcast.online. Now, it's going to be looking for a 6-digit code, and I, as the teacher, am going to make sure that I start that broadcast up on the screen. If you're not quite sure how to begin a broadcast, check out the video on our YouTube playlist about how to use Newline Broadcast, and that will walk you through how to get started. But once I have that up and running on my panel, on my student device, I'm going to copy over the 6-digit code that's showing. And as soon as I type in that last digit, it's going to automatically connect me to the broadcast. So once I get connected, you'll be able to see that 6-digit code that I was talking about there. So now I'm looking at my teacher's display. Very, very easy for students to get connected. You could also have them bookmark that broadcast.online website if this is something that you think that you're going to use often. But now, since I'm connected, I have access to all of these other tools down here at the bottom of my screen. So, as a student, I have the ability to zoom in and out on a web page. I can do picture in picture, so I can put the view of the panel down there in the bottom right hand corner. That way, I have the ability to continue doing notes or assessments or whatever it may be. I can also make this web page a little bit more full screen. So if I do click that full screen button, you'll notice it's still not completely full screen. There's going to be a little bit of space around the outside just to continue to leave space for those tools for our students. If I want to get back to that regular view where I have my address bar at the top, I'm just going to click that full screen button again, and you'll see it's going to pop out into what it was before. Over here on the left side, I have two options I really want to point out. But what I do want to show you before we talk about those is what this view is going to look like for my students. So if I, as the teacher, am closing out of the broadcast and I'm going on with my lesson, say I have something open in the whiteboard. In my case, it is a worksheet on ethos, pathos, and logos. As my teacher writes, I'm going to be able to see that on my student device in real time. So as we go through and we complete this assignment, I'm going to be able to see my teacher's notes right on my device. Now, here is where those tools on the left side come in. Say I have something like a math problem or something that I really want my students to be able to show their work on. I'm actually going to switch tabs here over to a slideshow, and you'll be able to see what that looks like from my student's perspective. If, again, I want them to be able to answer a question. Let me get to a slide here that has that question on it. So say I'm asking them to solve these equations. On my student device, over here in this bottom left-hand corner, I'm going to have this option to annotate. What that's going to allow me to do is take a screen grab of whatever is on the screen there. You'll see it over there on the right-hand side. And I can actually grab my pen tool and I could mark this up. Now, my writing with my trackpad is not very good, but your students would be able to mark up this slide. Okay, so if you wanted them to solve that problem, have a copy of it. Once they fill in that answer, you're going to see some tools over here on the right hand side. So I could either erase that or I could actually save or download that image. So I'm going to go ahead and download it to my Chromebook. That way I have my own copy of it. Now I could then upload that to my teacher through Google Classroom or Canvas or Blackboard or whatever it is that I use in my classroom. I could also share that image. So if I wanted to put it in a place, like Google Slides or something like that, I have the ability to share that image. In my case, I'm just going to use the download feature so I can upload it exactly where I want it later. But in order to move on and continue following along with my teacher, I have to close out of this annotation. So if you could see my panel right now, I've actually navigated back to the home screen, but on my student's device, it's still showing the slides. That is because when this annotation toolbar is open, kind of like on my Newline panel, it's going to freeze that image for my students. So when I'm ready to move on, I'm just going to click that X button and you'll see that annotation has gone away. So it is really, really important to save that image if you do want to come back to it or share it with your teacher later. But remember, as I go through my Newline panel, my students are now going to have a copy of that on their own device. So, say I go to Google Chrome, we're talking about threats to polar bears. Okay, I can go through this Google Chrome web page. If I open up my panel's annotation tools, say I want to highlight something or circle something, take a note, that is all going to transfer over to my student's device, bringing that content to them up close and personal. So, this is a really great tool for our students to have access to when it comes to not only things like accommodations for our kids who need to be seated near the source of instruction, but also just great teaching for all of our students to make sure that that content is easily viewable and accessible to them. Now, once the lesson is over, say it's the end of class, there are two ways that my student can leave a broadcast. One is going to put the responsibility on them. So if I, as the student, am done and I want to leave my broadcast, I can click this leave broadcast icon in the top right hand corner. If you want to make sure that even though you trust your students and they're very responsible, you want to make sure that they're no longer connected to your Newline panel, I, as the teacher, can stop the broadcast on my display. So if I touch my broadcast icon here, all I, as the teacher, am going to do is hit stop. And once I confirm that I do want that to stop, it's going to end the broadcast for my students, like you can see there. In the video on using Newline Broadcast on our YouTube channel, we'll walk through in a little bit more detail how to stop that broadcast and the different options that you have when it's finished. But this has just been a quick overview of what Newline Broadcast looks like from your student's perspective. Happy teaching!